Thank you for participating. Thank you for being here. So that is retired Air Force. He's responsible for selecting our speaker. He's going to introduce our keynote speaker.
Good morning, everyone. So I want to introduce Dr. Sunny Ware, author of many books, including the Burke Suite cookbook. And please come up and start the day off.
Can I just talk like this, or?
I can hear you fine back here.
Okay. So, to welcome everyone, thank you for coming this morning, quite early, but thank you for making it. And, we're going to talk today about the Swiss Army knife of tips for your cyber success. So, full disclosure, the costume, well, I think it's a costume, obviously I'm not even sure we call these things like fatigues or something. I don't know. Anyway, I got this at the Army Navy supply store, and I've been told that I wear it well, so thank you. Pat explained to me the hat, like the hat. But anyway, I want to honor our vets. I have a lot of respect for you guys. But I wanted to wear this sort of in theme with what we're going to talk about. So I've got almost 30 years of experience in IT and security. That's a long time. And I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, and I thought, okay, what am I going to talk about for this keynote? Well, why don't I just share some of my mistakes? And, maybe we can get some chuckles out of that, and maybe you guys could, glean some things from those and possibly avoid the same pitfalls. So, obviously, the anecdotes that I'm going to share and the things that I'm going to advise you on, your mileage may vary, but just take it in stride. So the first thing is, and what I did was every slide uses a military term. Now, these could be from different branches, so, but this first one is a levitt, which basically means 10 pounds of manure in a 5-pound bag. This first tip is for all of you out there that are starting your cybersecurity career, and you start realizing that there just aren't enough people doing what you do. And because of that, your skill set is going to be very much in demand. And so you're going to be asked by other cybersecurity companies, in addition to your full-time job, if you want to do extra work. And the extra work, it's 1099 work, it's good work, you can get really good pay. And if you haven't been approached already, you will be, because it's just a natural part of the fact that we just don't have enough people. So you're going to be very excited about this, especially if you've been in a situation where you're not making a lot of money and somebody presents you with an opportunity to make $90 an hour or $100 an hour, you're going to want to jump at the chance. So my first tip is, before you sign the contract, please read it. And what I've done is, in full disclosure here, the samples that I'm going to read, of course, I'm not going to name, who the companies are. But these are real, these samples are from actual 1099 contracts that I was presented. I don't work for these companies. But I wanted to read to you some of the verbiage, because I want you to realize that what you're signing could have lasting effects. So the first one it kind of reads like as if you're an employee, but remember this is for 1099. So it says if the contractor during the period of this agreement creates, produces, or develops any ideas or services relating to or capable of being used in those aspects of the business of the company in relation to which the contractor provides the services or the works, the contractor agrees that all such works and products shall, upon their creation, be considered and deemed a work made for hire, and that the company shall be deemed the sole and exclusive author of the works. So what does this mean? It means, hey, you're doing a pen test, and you decide to write a script, to test, I don't know, DDoS or something like that. Guess what? What you just wrote, they now own. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. And other people have come up to me and said, well, nobody's going to really, enforce that or go after that. It doesn't matter. Just don't sign it. I mean, in a lot of these cases where I'll read the contract, I just go back to the company and say, yeah, I'm not going to sign it because of these clauses. And guess what? They take them out. So in a lot of cases, you might be able to work with the company. In some cases, you won't. And I've had the other happens. So let me read to you this next sample. It says, and this one is a real doozy. Any intentions, inventions, improvements, concepts, or ideas made or even conceived by the contractor during the course of the contractor's services performed for the company, past, present, and future, shall be the sole and exclusive property of the company. The contractor agrees to and does hereby assign to the company all of their rights, titles, and interests in such inventions without any claim or right by the contractor to additional compensation. So I hope that tip stays with you, because chances are you will be presented with these types of contracts. Just make sure you protect yourself. All right. Fire and maneuver. This is a basic modern military low-level unit tactic used to maneuver on the battlefield in the presence of the enemy. Now, fire and maneuver, I just kind of saw it as two things: you fire and you maneuver. In cybersecurity, this is a vast area of discipline. You can do network engineering, network security. You can do pen testing. You can do web apps. What I recommend to you, particularly if you're new in the field, is that you just pick two things. Just pick two things. In other words, 2 areas of focus that you're going to dedicate your time. Because when I first got into the field, I wanted to do everything. I wanted to do Wi-Fi hacking, and I wanted to do reverse engineering, and I wanted to do network pen testing, and I wanted the OCP, and I wanted, because everybody was doing all these things. And my advice to you, and what I give to students that I teach classes, is just pick 2 things that you're very interested in, and it would be nice if they sort of complement each other. So the 2 areas I picked is web app penetration testing and reverse engineering. And they kind of complement each other, because when I do mobile pen testing assessments, I have to reverse engineer, the binaries of the mobile app. So, but we have limited amount of time, right? We've got families, we've got other obligations. So this is one of the tips I would give to you. There are superstars out there, that seem to know everything. Maybe they just have been around long enough that they acquire the knowledge, but this is my tip for you in the beginning. All right, this guy, the F and G. Okay, so this next tip, by the way, F and G, you can read what it says, F and new guy. Know what the tool does before you start using it. Okay, so funny story. So I was at the beginning of my penetration testing days, and I had learned about this really cool tool called SQL Map. And I thought, wow, this is awesome. So as long as I can find an exposure point, all I have to do is point this thing at that, wherever my exposure point is, and boom, it's going to give me a whole dump of all the tables, and everybody's going to be wowed, and they're going to be, praising my name. But probably not. But what ended up happening was, I'm doing this pen test, I got my SQL map running, and I'm talking to the DBA of this database that I'm basically hitting against. And I'm talking to her about something unrelated to the pen test. And all of a sudden she says, oh, I gotta go. Why, what's wrong? My database just went down. Oh. So I'm at my keyboard going, Control-C, Control-C, Control-C. So, yeah, the FNG, that was me. What I didn't realize was that out of the box, SQL Map runs 10 threads. The environment that I was running against, it wasn't production luckily, but it was a pre-production type environment, and it didn't have a lot of connection pools and things like that, so I very quickly brought that system down. I learned my lesson. So when you're taking your classes, you learn about a lot of tools, and they don't always tell you the things that are relevant for when you're actually using those tools in an assessment. So there you go. Don't make my mistake. Okay, so those insignia things that, whatever, well, they're called canary clubs or chest candy or fruit salad. So I don't know if that's a compliment or what, but I guess the military guys would know. I'm sort of equating those officers to like a manager. So my tip for you here is that you choose to work for a manager that supports you. Now let me explain what I mean by that. You want a manager that's going to be fighting for you. You want a manager that's going to be trying to get raises for you. You want a manager that's going to be looking to promote you. You want a manager that appreciates you. If you are right now looking for somebody that does not do these things, find a new manager. This career area is just not enough people doing it, so I'm sure someone else would love to have that would do those things. And this is a hard one because I know in the beginning, you're very anxious to get a job and start making good money. But please keep this in mind. And it might take a few years, under your belt before you start seeing the benefits of this, but it's really important. All right, the buddy system. I think we all know what the buddy system is, even outside of the military. This is really hard to find. It was hard for me to find in the beginning. Actually, I have a dear friend that's here today that helped me get into cybersecurity, and then also enlightened me along the way. And I'm very appreciative to him for that. And as the years have gone by, I've acquired other buddies that have helped me, because after you acquire so many certifications, I don't want to tell you how many I have because I'm a little bit embarrassed now by it, but you know, after a while you kind of start losing your enthusiasm for the continuing education thing, because remember, every cert that you get costs money and you have to do CPEs. So bear that in mind, because it started getting, like, I was spending like $1,000 a year just on all these certs. But anyway, besides that, there was this one certification that my buddy really wanted. I was only interested in going through the course. He really wanted to do the whole certification part. So he sort of started it for us because we said, okay, we're going to do it together. So he started the certification, and he really helped to inspire me to get through it because I was just not enthusiastic about getting another cert. So the moral of the story is that if you can have somebody else that sort of helps you along in those times when you don't feel inspired, it can really go a long way. And I know that it's hard to find that, like that connection, but it's events like this where you can sort of get introduced to people and find something like that. Sorry about that. Okay, tip number 6, cool hand. I like this term. I don't know how often it's used in the military, but I really like it. It's a person who's not easily upset, so don't sweat small stuff. There's been lots of mistakes, particularly in IT areas, where things go bad in production. I remember one time, this was very early in my IT career, I was doing a deployment, and I had this corn shell script, and for whatever reason, my script was not deploying the code, and it just was taking a long time, and I had like a senior engineering guy in my cube, and that's when we all sat in cubes, and I was like, man, what is wrong with my script? Like, it's exactly the same script that I always use. I wrote it myself. Well, come to find out, corn shell, and I don't know if it's like this with bash shell, but I had an extra line at the bottom of my script. And that extra new line was preventing it from getting kicked off. So I said to the senior engineer, I said, what if I delete this last line? Because you can see it, like when you VI it, right? I don't want to get into the Emacs VI thing. But anyway, I just did a DD, delete line, and then I saved the file, and it worked. And I felt like $1 million, only I had delayed the production install by an entire day. So anyway, but in the big picture, it's the mistakes that you make that you end up learning the most from. So don't sweat that. I love this picture in this whole hoo-ah, I guess it's ooh-ah. The Marines say ooh-ah, is that it?
Hoorah.
Hoorah. Hoorah. Okay. So it's ooh-ah. Does it say, is it different in the Army? Okay, thank you. Awesome. I love this. My whole point to this slide is that you guys take the time to balance your work and your life. So every year on New Year's Day, which almost all of us get New Year's Day off of work, I like to sit and talk with my significant other about our plans for the year and start working to schedule those things for the next 12 months. It's important because, life happens and it comes very quickly. And so if we can just take that time to play as hard as we work, then I think it'll help us to be emotionally, more balanced. And we all know about the burnout rate in cybersecurity field. All right. Arrange for recon. So this is a Marines term, from what I understand. It's gaining information to mitigate risk, but I would imagine each branch has a similar term. But this is about interviewing the interviewer. So when you're in an interview, make sure, first of all, that you do research about the company. Make sure that before you sign on the dotted line for that cybersecurity role, that they already have a cybersecurity group. This is important because if you take a job where you're like the only web pen testing guy or gal, and you're new in the field, how are you going to know when you run a scan or do some pen test? How are you going to know what a real vulnerability is? You won't have any senior person to go to say, hey, is this a finding or is it not a finding? So it's important that if you're looking for support and help in your role, that you make sure that it's there already. I had a guy that was one of my students, and he landed a job right after the cyber boot camp, and but he was the only web pen testing guy, and then they had another guy who was doing the network stuff, and he didn't have anybody to lean on, and so he would call me a lot in that first year, which is fine, but it's not the same as being there with somebody. So just make sure that you do your recon. All right, TNT. Usually TNT we say is the Neon Temple, but in this case it's today, not tomorrow. So my tip number 9 for you is keep learning, and it's definitely a today type thing. This is the type of field where you have to constantly be learning about new attacks and new mitigations and be pipelined into either newsletters or sites that you might go to or things that come to your phone, because otherwise, let's see, there's something that somebody said to me this past week. He said, the death of this job is to stop learning. So basically he was saying, look, if I stop learning, I'm not going to have this job. So very, very good advice. All right. This one, tip number 10, is to stay humble. So there's this saying, it's in the military, you're always boot to someone. Boot meaning, someone who's inexperienced. So my advice to you is that you realize that you're never going to know everything about the field. I mean, it's just not possible. And that if you come across as arrogant, you will be unapproachable. And most of us don't want that. So make sure that you keep your ego in check and realize that there's probably somebody that knows a lot more. I have a story for this. So I was at an event local here in Tampa, and I was meeting a bunch of people that were new in the field, and this young woman comes up to me and she's talking. She doesn't know really who I am, and she says, oh yeah, and then there's this thing, this Burp Suite. Oh yeah, I know everything about Burp Suite. I don't need to learn anything else about that. And I just chuckled to myself. So I don't know how many of you know this, but like Burp Suite is sort of my thing. I've written 3 Pluralsight courses on it. I've written a book on it. I wrote a mobile app that's about the Burp Tool Buddy. So Burp Suite's my thing. So when she said this, I just sort of chuckled and thought, you poor child. So just realize that, know, you're always a boot to somebody, so just bear that in mind. All right. Now, I want to give you a homework assignment. So there's something that I did with my day job. I call it my day job, not my 1099 job, it's called my day job, where they had me fill out like a survey. And I know y'all have seen like these personality things, but this one I really got a lot of value out of. It's called the Gallup-Clifton Strengths. And what it'll do is it'll identify to you the 3 things that you're strongest in. Now, I found this interesting because my #1 strength is learner, and what it means is that I love to learn new things, and I don't even necessarily, want to get to the end of it, because you kind of almost never do. I enjoy the journey as well, the process of learning. How I do this in my daily life is I take anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes every single day to go through either an online course, and there's like tons of them that are cheap, right? Like Udemy and things like that. And Tester Lab is another good one. Or I might watch a Twitch stream that's of a hacker. But I take time every single day to go through that material because it's something I really enjoy, and I want to be able to share this information like with my team. Okay, I heard about this new attack. Let's try it out. And if you can surround yourself with other people who also have the same primary strength, it makes for a lot of team cohesion, and it may even help you to understand if you have some leadership abilities. So I remember one of the other strengths of, not my strength, but another person, it was WOW, which is, it's not the game, but it's the wanting to win one over, or something like that. And it's basically like this people person, I am not, I'm an introvert, but that was their strength, and so that's their most important focus when they're doing any activity. So I think it's helpful to know, and I think that it will help you to identify with other people if you know what that strength might be. And you can just Google those words, Gallup-Clifton Strengths, and you'll find the site. So, Bravo Zulu, I love this. It's a military term that means well done. And I want to say that all of you have done a great job listening today, and I hope that there was something here that you can take away with